Oh, is he here? He's here. Oh, finally, we've been waiting on him all day. Thank God you're here. We've been sitting around waiting for like 25 minutes here. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. I'm glad you could make it. So where should we begin? So obviously, I get the usual messages. Dan, where's the dually? You've been working on the dually. Fucking A. And quite frankly, it's going well now. For the past couple of months, I've been working on a couple of different lid ideas, which, as you guys know, center consoles have lids inside of trucks. I don't feel like I need to explain this to you guys, but here we are. It's really important to me that the lid be amazing and perfect because it's the most important piece to like the center console in my opinion. There's a bunch of different ways I could have done it, could have wrapped it in leather and called it good. That's not who I am as a person, especially not considering the amazing epoxy lid that I made last time. It got a ton of views, people thought it was awesome, and I can't just do like a bullshit side quest, I gotta do a main story quest for the center console lid. And that's what I've been doing, and that's what this is here. So I'm still working on the lid. It's going for hopefully its final coat of epoxy today. I've only done like 10 coats, and it takes a full day for the coats to harden up and cure so I can sand them down and do another coat. So I've done like 10 coats on the current lid, and it's hopefully today is the last coat. Anyway, I thought while we wait on that, let's talk about my failures, right? I think this is important. I've been working on this lid now for months, and I come up with an idea, I attack that idea, and then I inevitably ruin it because of who I am as a person, and then I move on and start something else. You might be wondering what the fuck is going on here, and this is my previous center console lid designs that were what I would consider to be my ultimate failures as far as anything I've ever done with epoxy because of how much time and money these have costed me because I suck. So this was my first idea. We'll talk about this mess in a second, but this was my first idea. I still think that the ideas that I had were cool. I just decided that they weren't what I was going for, and I think that you guys might be able to benefit off of these if you ever do any more epoxy stuff like that, because epoxy is my favorite thing to do. Besides metalworking, epoxy is pretty close up there, but it also is a pain in my sides. It's a pain in the asshole, very much, okay? So the first idea that I had, what I was gonna do is I was gonna take 2 pieces of wood, dig them out to where they had like really cool deep layers, burn them until they were nice and charred and create a bunch of deep crevices, coat them on epoxy, clearish white, opaque, translucent, there you go if you guys watch The Boys, translucent epoxy through the center of it, have that glow, whatever color I felt like it, and it would kind of look like lightning had struck the wood, and yeah, not only did it not end up working the way I thought it was gonna work and turning out the way I wanted it to work, it also ended up looking like a giant turd. And my name isn't Amber Heard, so I'm not into this. So that didn't work the way I wanted it to work. However, I still think it's a cool process and it was a cool idea. And in the future, I'd like to implicate it in a better way and maybe come up with something better than that. So here's the process of how I did that. This isn't 10 feet. This is 10 feet and a half inch. Those fucking liars at Lame Depot. Let me put on my safety glasses. All right, look at these beautiful pieces of wood, right? The best that Lame Depot has to offer. So the concept of what I'm gonna do is that I'd like to make this a trough that you'd pour epoxy into. I'm gonna back it with lights underneath it. But the really cool part is that I'm gonna use a mixture of white epoxy to diffuse the light and clear epoxy to show off the wood. But we're not just gonna leave it wood. Like I said earlier, we're gonna use this Sangoku technique. We're gonna use the Shamalama Ding Dong technique, the ants in my pants technique, the sugar tits method. We're gonna use the Sugma method, as in sug my dick. Man, I'm not even trying anymore. What we're basically gonna do is we're gonna char the wood until it's like a deep black, cracky. But before we do that, I really want to abuse the wood and kind of create a pattern and a design to make it like brittle looking. But before I get to abusing the wood, I'm gonna go ahead and run it through the table saw and give a nice chamfer on the outside edges because it's center console lid. I want it to be a little bit more rounded. I don't want it to be just blocky like a square. I want it to have like a little bit of like a ooh to it, So we're gonna do that real quick. So these
cuts are obviously not gonna be 100% perfect, nor do I want them to be. It actually doesn't even matter because we're gonna be torching them, and the wood grain itself will decide what the shape is gonna be once it comes time. Because we're gonna torch these things, and I do mean torch. What I'd like to do is I'd like to create kind of like a design that's just gonna kind of not really specific, give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Here's a bunch of test pieces that I did the other day that I think might explain it a little bit. But using different techniques to abuse the wood and then charcoal it and burn it, it came up with different designs. And I think once that these are encased in epoxy, it will make everything look really cool. I'm going to abuse the wood. And by that, I mean I'm basically gonna do everything that a woodworker doesn't like to do, which is mess up the wood. So I'm gonna use a couple of tools to basically destroy the wood. I've got one of these. Got a little rotary tool here, steel carbide bit. I got one of these like vibro knives. I'm gonna use this in all the wrong ways. An angle grinder that I'm gonna put a bunch of different attachments on, but right now I've been running the radial wire brush. Wood's worst nightmare. And a drill. Then obviously I got a propane torch. I was gonna use MAP gas, but I can't find my MAP gas container, so we're gonna use propane. I'm basically gonna destroy this wood, so let's get doing it. So to avoid ruining my shop with wood particles, move this as close as I can to the door and put a fan on it so it can blow the excess wood particles out of the shop. I don't want my shop to be filled with wood. I think I'll just do one piece at a time. So I've really exposed the grain structure here, a little bit more so on this other piece here than the other side. I think it just kind of comes down to individual wood grain. But now I'm gonna go ahead and burn them. Man, that only worked so much. I am covered in dust particles. This is the stinky part. I mean, real stinky, until it's cracking and separating till we get the desired look. And I also have a piece of metal here so I don't burn my plastic sawhorses. So. done. All right, now it's time to do some epoxy work. I have some tabletop epoxy by Total Boat, which is not my normal stuff. I normally go with West Systems because it comes in the convenient pumps. It's really easy to mix. It's super hard to fuck up. But it's also like super expensive. It's just kind of the downside of epoxy is that if you want the really, really good stuff, it's stupid expensive. But if you want the pretty good stuff, then it's pretty reasonable. 50, 60 bucks a gallon, and you'd think I'd have a sponsor by now, but I don't. Our first step is gonna be putting a base coat on the wood because wood is very porous. It's full of moisture, which I've done my best to get rid of most of it. But rather than just doing a single deep pour and then having to mitigate the bubbles, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a clear coat first, kind of tackle the bubbles right then and there, and then we'll do our deep pour and we won't have to worry about bubbles like at all. So I've got our epoxy here, which I believe is a 1-to-1 mix ratio. I've got a little mixing bucket here. I'm not gonna mix a whole lot up. Now we're gonna mix. Oh. That is not mixing clear. Maybe I mixed in a little bit too much right away. I'm not really sure what's going on here. This is not at all how what I'm used to. So I'm just gonna start out with one side first and go from there, because I'm not sure, it's not clear. That might have been too much as well. This is what I get for trying to save money and use a brand I'm not familiar with. I'm also not trying to saturate the wood. I'm just trying to get it covered so it doesn't produce bubbles when we go do our pour. It's gonna move some charcoal-y bits around, but since we're doing such a shallow layer, it's not gonna matter. Although it is starting to clear up on me a little bit. Maybe it will work out. This isn't going awesome, but it's not going terrible either. You know, it's kind of 50-50 right now. It's already absorbed most of that. The torch really helped clear up that white bit, which was just the, I guess that was just bubbles. Like a lot of bubbles. This wood is really absorbing the epoxy quickly, faster than I expected. I wonder if it would be easier to spray the wood with like a clear coat from like an automotive grade clear coat and then drop the epoxy around it.
Okay, to be honest, I think what ended up happening was the epoxy got filled with bubbles due to 2 reasons. One, it was a much colder day, meaning the epoxy was thicker and it aerates a little bit easier that way when you mix it. And 2, I mixed it a little bit too aggressively with the drill, putting a lot more air in it than it needed to be, which is where all the white stuff comes from. I don't think any of this has to do with the manufacturer. This is strictly user error, but at the end of it, a blowtorch took all the bubbles right out, and these actually cured perfectly.
All right, while we take a quick break here, I have something that might actually interest you guys. You know I have ad breaks that are usually all over the place, but I think this one is dead ass right up your alley. You're probably wondering like, why, Dan, do you have so many boxes? That's because originally when I agreed to do this partnership with Fanhome, it was right before I had my accident, but they just kept kind of sending me packages in the meantime. So as we get opening up, let's talk about what Fanhome is. Fanhome is a brand dedicated, unique collection and build-up of models from your favorite brands like Marvel and Star Wars, as well as Fast and the Furious here, which is what we're doing today. They also provide fully illustrated magazines with inspiring content in every product. Is that a brake biased and brake booster? It's actually a lot more detail than I was expecting. Okay, heck yeah, we got a Fast and the Furious hat with this one. We'll put the hat on right now since we're doing it. I am both fast and furious. Now, Fanhome launched with the Dodge Charger from Fast and the Furious, but by now they have a bunch more products, which is a wide range of unique collections and build-up models from your favorite fantastic brands. They have excellent products, the magazines are colorful and well-designed, and everything is authentic and built really well. When I read, all this stuff lights up too, like the headlights and the taillights and whatnot. So that's really cool. That is a lot to process, that's a lot to build. If you want to get your own Dodge Charger from Fast and the Furious, as well as other from your favorite movies like Star Wars, and much more. The links are in the description. You guys can check those out. Make sure you use my link. Make sure you use my coupon code. And let me know what you think. I like building small models. It's been a long time since I've done any of this. Yeah, I look forward to doing that. Thank you guys, Fanhome, for sponsoring this video. And yeah, let's get back to it. So after I made that abomination, I came up with this one.
This one was, I still think this is probably one of the coolest ideas that I've had, but man, my execution was fucking off, right? The idea was to create what looked like shattered black glass, or maybe, what's that stuff that comes out of volcanoes? Obsidian? Like kind of like a shattered obsidian look to it, white epoxy behind it, and that would be RGB, it would glow different colors. I'd put white epoxy that was translucent again, and that would shine through and it would look really cool and it'd fit the theme of Odin and Thor and lightning and thunder, and it was really empowering. And then I man, it just did not work the way I wanted it to. Not any step of the way. But here's how I did this.
I think that's gonna be my last pour for the black, so we'll let that cure.
You can literally see my instant regret with how white the epoxy is.
Yeah, I'm not really liking the way this has gone either, and I do have plans to restart from here. Real quick, I'll go over why I'm not stoked on this. All the epoxy has dried perfectly. I was really worried because I used 2 or 3 different types of epoxies. I was worried about air bubbles, which I don't have any. It looks good. The epoxy so far has laid good. The issue that I'm having though is that in the corners, a lot of the tape has kind of come up and the epoxy has run behind the corners, and that basically ruins my lines of my corners. And I also realized a couple spots where it didn't seal up as good as I'd like it to. And rather than continuously dump more epoxy into this, I'm gonna go in a different direction, and I've made the decision of how I'm gonna do it. I'm basically just gonna make this entire thing out of wood, and I'm just gonna coat the entire thing in epoxy and make it really strong, which is kind of what I did with the lid separator on the front center console. There's a ring, and I was trying to figure out how I wanted to make it look kind of like plastic because that's what I was looking for. So I just coated some MDF in epoxy and it turned out really well, and some black epoxy. So I think in order to keep things reasonably priced and not waste any more epoxy than I have already wasted, which I've wasted probably a couple gallons at this point between the first one, the second one, and then this one. I think there's been 3 iterations. I finally settled on how I'm gonna do it, which is the way that I kind of refused to do it in the beginning, and we'll see that as the next steps go. I don't want to make any promises now that I can't keep, because this is the 3rd lid that I've tried to make and it's just not what I want. And you guys are probably thinking, Dan, just commit to something, just get it over with, and that's fine. That's absolutely what I want to do, but I can't just do that because I cannot accept subpar quality, what I would consider quality, right? That's why the build's taken so long, is because I just won't bullshit this. I'm either gonna 100% do it or I'm not gonna do it at all, and if I don't feel like 100% doing it that day, I just can't do it. So now I do have an idea that I'm gonna commit to. I don't know how if I'm gonna ever finish this. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. Maybe I can make this into like a table one day. And it's like, God, this is the part of the project that I don't think other people show, is their failures. It's important to me so I can remember, like, hey, it doesn't always work the first time or the second time, or hell, even the 3rd time. And the reason why it's so important to me is because, like, shit, I gotta live with it all day, every day. When I hop in that truck, I gotta look at my center console and be stoked on it. And if I'm not 100% stoked on it, I'm gonna hate it. So that's why this is such a big deal to me. I will not accept subpar quality to my own standards. That being said, time to start over. Again. Bitch. Yeah, that did not pan out the way I wanted it to, but I still think it's a really cool idea. I think that had I executed this a little bit better, it would have been a much more usable idea. Fuck, who is calling me? It's potential spam. Let's answer it. Hello? Hello?
Hello? Hi, sir. Am I calling Mr. Jack?
No, you have the wrong number. Okay. Whoever signed me up for, is this Mr. Jack? Is this Jack phone calls? Fuck you. But yeah, had I executed this just a little bit better, meaning that had I done better at mixing the epoxy to where it was more translucent than fucking A, I did way too much white epoxy dye and it came up with this like pure white. It looks it looks like, well, I don't want to tell you what it looks like. You're most likely a man and know exactly what that looks like. But I do consider these to be like my top 2 most ridiculous epoxy fails. That is even including that orange desk that I made a couple of years ago that never really fully cured. Just because it's expensive, man. You guys know I don't cheap out for epoxy. I don't like using cheap epoxies for many reasons. And this is probably $300, $400 in epoxy that I fucked up. But that being said, this is where you guys come into play. I still think this has potential. Not for my center console, maybe like a small side table or something, or like a cutting board, maybe a cutting board, I don't know. But I do feel like this has potential for something. I just am not sure what. So how about this? You guys come up with what you think is a cool idea for this, and I will try to make that in an epoxy recovery video, right? I'll try to turn this into a finished product, and hopefully maybe you guys want it. I'll put it on my website, I don't know. But let me hear what you guys think below in the comments, and I will try to read them and make this not like this. Yeah, welcome to my failures.